Libra, there's something different about the way you're moving today. Not louder, not faster, just quieter, more deliberate. And if you've noticed yourself pausing before saying yes, before spending, before explaining, before giving more than you have, this isn't hesitation. It's clarity beginning to take shape. Right now, Libra, you're not chasing excitement anymore. You're listening for stability, for what actually holds, not just what feels good in the moment. You may not have the full picture yet, but something inside you already knows which direction feels solid, and which ones you're finally done entertaining. Take a slow breath with me for a second. Let your shoulders drop. Notice what feels steady, not impressive, just steady. If this moment feels familiar, you can share a single word in the comments that describes what you're building right now. No explanations needed. And here's a question to sit with as we continue. What if the life you're moving toward doesn't arrive all at once, but begins the moment you stop rushing? Because from here, we're stepping into a much bigger story about home, love, and stability, and how they quietly start forming when you finally choose what lasts. And that sense of choosing what lasts doesn't arrive loudly. It slips in quietly. Libra, you might not even be able to name the moment it started. But if you look closely at the last few days, there's been a subtle change in how you respond. Things that used to pull a quick reaction from you don't land the same way anymore. A message, an invitation, a situation that once felt exciting now just feels noisy, not wrong, just tiring. And that's important, because this isn't you becoming cold or guarded or disconnected. It's you becoming selective in a way that only happens after you've carried uncertainty for too long. I'm talking to you like a friend sitting across the table, watching you stir a cup of coffee that's already gone cold. You're still listening, still kind. But you're no longer rushing to adjust yourself to keep the moment comfortable for everyone else. What's happening right now, Libra, is that you're starting to notice how much energy it costs to live in spaces that never quite settle. The conversations that circle but never land. The plans that sound good but don't feel solid. The emotional highs that fade just as quickly as they arrive. And something in you is quietly asking, how long do I want to keep living like this? Not with drama, not with frustration, just with honesty. This is the quiet shift most people miss because it doesn't come with a breaking point. It comes with a gentle exhaustion. The kind that makes you stop mid-sentence and think, I don't want to explain this anymore. You're not questioning your ability to feel. You're questioning what's worth feeling for. That's a very different thing. And here's where your energy really begins to change. You're no longer asking what excites you in the moment. You're asking what would still feel right when the day slows down, when the lights are off, when no one is watching. That question alone reshapes everything. It changes how you look at relationships, at work, at where you live, at how you spend your time and your money. Not because you suddenly have all the answers, but because you're no longer willing to build your life on things that wobble. Pause with me for a breath. Just one. And notice this. What feels heavier right now, the uncertainty you've been tolerating, or the idea of choosing something steadier, even if it means letting go of what once felt exciting? There's no right response. Just an awareness forming. And that awareness is the beginning of something important. Because once you stop reacting automatically, you start seeing patterns, where your energy leaks, where you've been over-accommodating, where you've been calling imbalance flexibility. That realization doesn't demand action right away. It simply asks you to stay present with it. And as we move forward from here, that quiet awareness will begin to shape the choices you make next in ways that feel calmer, clearer, and far more intentional than anything driven by impulse ever could. Let's keep going. And once that awareness settles in, something else begins to surface. Libra, there comes a point in life when excitement alone stops being enough. Not because you've lost your spark, but because you've learned what it costs to keep chasing it. I'm speaking to you now the way one friend speaks to another after both have lived long enough to know better. At a certain age, excitement doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't steady your breathing at 2 a.m. when your mind starts replaying old worries. It doesn't stay when the noise fades. And lately, you've felt that difference in your body, not as fear, as fatigue. You've noticed how some situations light you up quickly, but leave you drained afterward. How certain connections look good from the outside, yet ask you to bend just a little too often on the inside. So something in you has shifted, quietly, deliberately. You're choosing clarity over chemistry, consistency over intensity. Not because you're settling, but because you're finally honoring what actually supports you. This is where your priorities begin to rearrange themselves. Not in a dramatic way, in a grounded one. You're asking better questions now. Does this relationship feel clear, or does it keep me guessing? Does this financial choice calm my nervous system, or does it keep me awake at night? Does this path help me build something real, or just something that looks impressive from the outside? And the answers aren't always comfortable, but they're honest. You may notice yourself pulling back from things that once made others admire you. The late nights, the constant availability, the image of having it all together. 'Cause that's not you shrinking. That's you stepping into a version of yourself that doesn't need applause to feel secure. Stability, Libra, isn't the absence of passion. It's passion with a foundation underneath it. It's knowing where you stand with the people you let close. It's having a relationship with money that feels intentional instead of reactive. It's choosing a pace that lets you breathe instead of constantly proving something. And I want you to notice something important here. This choice you're making, it isn't loud. It won't announce itself. But it will change the way you live. Pause for a moment. Feel into this question gently. What feels more appealing to you right now, being admired for how much you can handle, or feeling safe enough to stop handling everything alone? There's no judgment in the answer, just information. Art, because when you choose stability over excitement, you're not giving anything up. You're redirecting your energy toward things that can actually last. And as this new priority settles into place, you may begin to notice how it quietly reshapes the choices you're about to make next, where you invest your time, who you open your heart to, and how you begin thinking about home in ways that feel more personal, more grounded, and more aligned with the life you're building now. Stay with me here, because from this steadier ground, another layer of the story is starting to reveal itself. And from that steadier ground, something quietly personal begins to come into focus. Libra, the word home has been changing its meaning for you. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but in a way that feels intimate and undeniable. I'm not talking about real estate listings or keys in your hand. I'm talking about the place your nervous system finally exhales. The place where you do not have to translate yourself. Where silence does not feel awkward. Where your calendar, your emotions, and your responsibilities are not constantly arguing with one another. That is what home is becoming now. You may notice this shift in small moments. Standing in a room that used to feel fine and realizing it no longer fits who you are. Listening to your own voice echo after a conversation and sensing that you said too much, again, just to keep the peace. and something inside you quietly decides, I don't want to live like this anymore. Home, for you right now, is not about size or status. It is about coherence. A life where your money is not spent fixing emotional discomfort, where your evenings are not crowded with obligations that leave you depleted, where your space, physical or emotional, is not constantly being negotiated. This is where the reflection deepens. You might feel drawn to changing your environment, rearranging a room, letting go of objects that carry old versions of you. Or you might feel an even stronger pull to change who has access to your inner world. Not everyone needs a key anymore, and that realization may feel both relieving and tender, because Libra, you have always been generous with space. You make room, you adjust, you accommodate. But right now, you are learning that not every presence deserves to live at the center of your life. Some belong at the edges, some outside the door entirely. And that is not rejection. It is discernment. Pause with me here. Just for a breath. Ask yourself softly, where do I still feel the need to over-explain in order to feel accepted? That question holds more truth than most answers ever could. What you are building now is an internal sense of home first. A place where your choices make sense to you even if no one else understands them yet. When that inner home begins to stabilize, the outer world follows in quiet ways. Your schedule becomes simpler. Your spending becomes more intentional. Your relationships either settle into honesty or slowly drift away. Not because you pushed them out, but because you stopped rearranging yourself to keep them comfortable. There is a deep kind of peace in that. Not the kind that comes from having everything figured out, but the kind that comes from knowing where you belong within yourself. And as this new definition of home takes shape, you may start to notice how it naturally influences the way you love, the way you commit, the way you imagine a future that feels livable, not just impressive. Stay here with me for a moment longer, because once you know what home truly feels like, the heart begins to ask different questions, and those questions lead us gently into the next layer of this story. And as that sense of home settles inside you, your heart begins to speak in a different tone. Libra, this is where love quietly changes its language, not in grand gestures, not in promises whispered too early, but in how your body feels when someone enters your space. Right now, love is no longer something you chase for intensity. It is something you notice for its effect on your peace. I want to say this clearly, as one friend speaking honestly to another. If someone steps into your life during this chapter, they will not ask you to choose between connection and calm. They will not pull you into emotional negotiations that leave you tired before the day is done. You are no longer available for love that competes with your nervous system. That shift alone changes everything. If you are already in a relationship, you may feel this as a quiet recalibration. The unspoken rules begin to surface. Who carries what? Where compromise has turned into self-erasure. Where silence has been mistaken for harmony. This is not about blame. It is about clarity. You are learning that love does not require constant adjustment. It does not demand that you stay agreeable at the cost of your truth. It invites mutual steadiness. And if something feels off right now, you are not imagining it. You are simply more attuned to the difference between peacekeeping and genuine peace. If you are single, the shift is just as real. You may notice yourself less impressed by charm, less drawn to emotional fireworks, and more intrigued by consistency. the kind of presence that does not need to perform, the kind of connection that does not rush intimacy just to feel alive. This is not you closing your heart. This is you protecting its rhythm. There is a maturity here that deserves to be honored, a recognition that love, when it is real, makes life simpler, not heavier, clearer, not more confusing. Pause with me for a moment. Ask yourself gently, when was the last time love felt like a place you could rest instead of a situation you had to manage? That question matters more than any label ever could. What you are redefining now is not romance. It is sustainability. You are choosing relationships that allow you to show up whole, that respect your time, your energy, your boundaries, that understand silence is not distance, and space is not rejection. This kind of love does not announce itself loudly. It reveals itself slowly, through reliability, through emotional safety, through the absence of unnecessary tension. And that is why this chapter feels different, because love is no longer a distraction from your life. It is becoming something that fits inside it. As you hold this new standard quietly, you may notice how it influences other areas too. The way you spend your evenings, the way you plan ahead, the way you think about building something lasting with another human being without losing yourself in the process. Stay with this feeling, because when love stops competing with your peace, it begins to align with the life you are creating. And from that alignment, another conversation naturally unfolds, one that touches how you invest your energy, your resources, and your sense of security moving forward. And that is where the story continues to deepen. And as love settles into something calmer, something else begins to soften too. Libra, this is where your relationship with money quietly changes its tone. Not through a sudden windfall, not through pressure or fear, but through a subtle sense of emotional relief. For a long time, money may have carried more weight than it needed to. It became a way to soothe stress, a way to compensate when something felt off, a way to keep things looking balanced on the outside, even when they felt uneven within. But lately, that emotional charge has been fading. You may notice it when you pause before spending, when you choose rest over impulse, when you realize you are less interested in impressing anyone and more interested in feeling steady when the day ends. This is not restriction. It is regulation. You are no longer asking money to manage your feelings. You are asking it to support your life. That shift matters more than most people realize, because when money is tied to emotion, it moves erratically. It rushes out when you are overwhelmed. It tightens when you are afraid. It becomes reactive instead of intentional. And right now, Libra, you are stepping out of that pattern. You are beginning to build your financial life the same way you are rebuilding everything else, with awareness, with pacing, with respect for your own nervous system. You may feel drawn to structure, not rigid rules, but gentle systems that create breathing room, clear plans, predictable rhythms, a sense that your resources are working with you instead of against you. This is where economic stability starts to take shape, quietly, incrementally, without announcement. You might even notice that fewer people know what you are doing financially now. And that feels right. Not everything needs to be shared. Not everything needs validation. You are learning that security is built when no one else is watching. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself softly, what does financial calm feel like in my body? Not wealth, not success, just calm. That answer is guiding you more than any number ever could, because as your emotions settle, Your money begins to mirror that steadiness. Spending becomes simpler. Decisions become clearer. Long-term thinking replaces short-term relief. This is not about having more. It is about needing less emotional repair. And that changes everything. You may find that money no longer defines your worth. It becomes a tool again, a support, a quiet foundation that allows other parts of life to expand naturally. That is real wealth, the kind that does not fluctuate with mood or approval, the kind that grows because it is grounded. Stay with this feeling, because when your finances stop carrying emotional weight, they begin to align with the life you are intentionally building. And from that alignment, another layer of clarity starts to emerge, one that has less to do with numbers and more to do with where you place your energy, who you choose to invest in, and what kind of future feels worth sustaining. And that is where our next reflection begins. And with that steadier relationship to money, another quiet change begins to show itself. Libra, you may have noticed this already. You are explaining yourself less, not because you have nothing to say, but because you are no longer interested in defending choices that finally make sense to you. There was a time when you felt the need to soften your decisions for others, to justify why you were moving slower, why you were not everywhere at once, why you were no longer chasing every invitation, every opportunity, every expectation placed in front of you. You wanted to be understood. You wanted to keep the peace. But something shifted. And now, when someone asks why you chose the quieter path, you feel no urgency to respond. That silence is not avoidance. It is self-trust. I am speaking to you honestly here, as someone who knows what it takes to carry too many explanations for too long. Every time you explain yourself to someone who is not living your life, you spend energy you will never get back. You reopen decisions that were already settled inside you. You step out of your own center just to make someone else comfortable. And right now, Libra, you are done doing that. You are realizing that not everyone needs to understand your pace, your priorities, your reasons. Some people will look at your choices and see withdrawal. Others may call it distance. A few might even mistake it for indifference. Let them. Because what they cannot see is how much strength it takes to choose alignment over approval. You are no longer building a life that requires constant explanation. For you are building one that feels coherent when you are alone with it. And that is a profound shift. This is where your energy starts to return to you. When you stop narrating your life for an audience, you gain the focus to actually live it. Notice how much lighter your days feel when you do not rehearse conversations in your head, when you do not prepare arguments for decisions that are already made. That lightness is not accidental. It is the result of boundaries settling into place. Pause here for a moment. Ask yourself quietly, who am I still explaining myself to out of habit, not necessity? There is no blame in that question, only awareness. Because the moment you stop explaining, you create space. Space to listen, space to build, space to stay present with what matters now. And this space is essential for anything lasting to take root. You cannot build something steady while constantly looking over your shoulder. You cannot commit to a slower, more intentional life if you are still trying to convince others that it makes sense. It does not need to make sense to them. It needs to feel right to you. As you release the habit of explanation, your focus sharpens, your energy consolidates, your attention turns inward, toward the things that actually support your growth. And without realizing it, you begin to protect what you are building simply by not discussing it. This is not secrecy. It is stewardship. Stay with this feeling, because once you stop explaining your life away, you begin to see more clearly where your energy truly belongs. Who deserves access? What deserves investment? And from that clarity, the next layer of your journey unfolds not loudly, but with a quiet sense of direction that no explanation could ever replace. And with that clarity about where your energy belongs, the timing of all this starts to make more sense. Libra, February 5th through the 10th, is not a peak moment. It is not a finish line. And it is definitely not a dramatic turning point that announces itself with noise. This stretch of time is quieter than that, more precise. Think of it as the moment you finally place something down exactly where it needs to sit, so it does not wobble later. What you are doing now may not feel urgent, but it is deeply consequential. This is the part most people overlook. They wait for motivation to strike, for certainty to arrive, for the feeling that everything is aligned before they begin. You are learning something different. Right now, consistency matters more than inspiration. Small choices repeated calmly carry more weight than big gestures fueled by emotion. During these days, you are not being asked to decide everything. You are being asked to decide a few things correctly: how you structure your days, what you say yes to, what you quietly protect. These decisions ripple outward. The way you organize your time now affects where and how you will feel at home later. The way you show up in relationships now shapes how safe and balanced they can become. The way you handle money and responsibility now sets the tone for how secure you feel in the months ahead. Nothing flashy, nothing instant, just honest alignment. This is why it might feel almost anticlimactic, because the work is internal. It happens in the pauses, in the moments when you choose not to react, in the choice to stay steady instead of rushing ahead. And I want to be clear with you here, as a friend. There is no magic coming to rescue what you neglect, but there is quiet strength growing where you remain consistent. That is not a threat. It is an invitation. You are discovering that stability is not something you arrive at. It is something you practice. You practice it when you keep your word to yourself, when you follow through on small commitments, when you resist the urge to abandon structure just because things feel calm. Pause here for a moment. Ask yourself this, gently. What am I building right now that will thank me 3 months from now? That question holds the key to this entire phase, because the value of this period is not how it feels today, it is how it supports you later. You are laying groundwork for a living situation that feels supportive instead of chaotic, for relationships that feel balanced instead of draining, for a financial rhythm that feels dependable instead of reactive. And no one else needs to see this work happening. In fact, it is better if they do not. Some foundations are strongest when they are built quietly. As these days unfold, trust the steadiness you are choosing, even if it feels unremarkable, even if it feels slower than you expected. Because this is not about a breakthrough moment. It is about continuity. And continuity is what allows a life to hold together when circumstances change. Stay present with that truth, because once the foundation is set, what grows on top of it has a very different kind of strength. And from here, the story does not rush forward. It settles in, preparing us gently for the final layer of this journey. And now, Libra, we come to the kind of ending that doesn't rush to close the door, the kind that pulls up a chair and sits beside you for a moment longer. If things feel slower lately, if the days feel less dramatic and more measured, that is not life losing momentum. It may be life finding its footing. There is a quiet dignity in this phase that often goes unnoticed. Because it does not arrive with applause, it does not prove itself right away. It simply holds. You might look around and wonder why nothing feels urgent anymore. Why the old pressure to chase, fix, or impress has softened into something steadier. This is not you falling behind. This is you no longer running ahead of yourself. I want to say this gently, as someone sitting close enough to notice your breathing slow. You do not owe the world a breakthrough right now. You do not owe anyone certainty. You do not need to justify why your life feels quieter. Some chapters are not meant to be loud. They are meant to be stable. And stability does not announce itself. It reveals itself over time by how little it asks of you just to remain standing. You may still have questions, loose ends, moments of doubt. That does not mean you are off track. It means you are awake inside the process. Let yourself notice what is no longer pulling at you, what no longer demands explanation, what no longer drains your energy just to keep existing. That absence is not emptiness. It is space, space for breath, for choice, for a life that fits you instead of one you have to manage. Sit with this question for a moment. No rush. What part of your life feels steadier simply because you stopped forcing it to move? And there is wisdom in that stillness. Because when you stop pushing, you begin to feel where things naturally want to settle, where your time belongs, where your care is best placed, where your future quietly begins to root itself. You do not need to believe in anything grand right now. You only need to stay present with the choices you are already making. The slower ones, the quieter ones, the ones that feel sustainable even on ordinary days. If it feels like progress has slowed, consider this. Buildings rise quickly, foundations do not. And the strength of what comes next depends entirely on how patiently the ground is set. So stay with your pace. Stay with your clarity. Stay with what feels honest, even when no one is watching. There is nothing more you need to do in this moment than remain with yourself. If everything feels a little quieter now, a little less urgent, a little more grounded, that may not be an ending at all. It may be the moment when things finally begin to stand on their own. And we can leave it here, not as a conclusion, but as a pause. One that lets you carry this feeling forward into whatever comes next. Libra. Before we close this space, let me leave you with something small but honest. As everything slows, you may notice that what feels strongest right now is not certainty. It is alignment. And here's the quiet observation I don't want you to miss. The moment you stopped rushing for answers, your life stopped pushing back. So let me ask you this, gently. What feels calmer today, not because it finally worked out, but because you decided to stop forcing it? Sit with that. If it feels right, take a moment of silence after this video ends. No scrolling, no fixing. Just one slow breath and notice where your body feels steady. That is your inner work for now. Not changing anything, just recognizing what already holds. Here is a simple practice you can carry with you tonight. Before sleep, ask yourself one quiet question. What am I no longer chasing, and how does that feel in my chest? You don't need an answer. Awareness is enough. And if something in this message felt familiar, if it felt like it was speaking directly to you, you're not alone in that. You're part of a community of Libras learning how to build lives that feel balanced from the inside out. If you want, leave a word or a short sentence in the comments that captures what you're choosing to build right now. It helps this space stay alive, and it helps others feel seen too. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next message, because this journey isn't ending here, it's just settling into its next shape. Trust yourself, Libra. Not because everything is clear, but because you're finally listening. We'll meet again soon, when the next layer is ready to be heard.